Welcome to ECTEL Bytes, a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. I'm your host, Coretta Cooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. ECTEL is a regional regulatory body advising the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commissions, the NTRCs, on electronic communications or telecommunications matters in our 5 member states, namely the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Before we introduce our special guest, let me take a moment to say Happy International Girls in Information and Communication Technologies Day, or for short, Happy Girls in ICT Day. The theme for 2022 is Access and Safety. So our topic on ECTEL Bytes is Keeping Our Girls Safe in the Online Space. Girls in ICT Day is observed annually every last Thursday of April. According to the International Telecommunication Union, the ITU, for girls and young women to thrive in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM careers, they need safe and reliable access to the internet and digital tools. This year and every year, the ITU and their partners work together to develop solutions and ideas for lowering barriers to access and improving safety online for girls and young women. So, ECTEL's small contribution to this global observance is to discuss the issues from a Caribbean perspective, to share some tips that can be taken to keep our girls safe online, and to encourage more girls to pursue studies and careers in ICT. We didn't have to look very far for our special guest. Today, we are joined by Mrs. Janelle Augustin-Henry, ECTEL's Information Systems Manager. Welcome, Janelle.
Hi, good afternoon, Coretta. Thanks for having me here today, and congratulations on your 11th episode of ECTEL Bytes.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right into it because, as the name suggests, it's ECTEL Bytes. We don't want to keep people for too long, so we're going to jump right into it. So Janelle, you are the Information Systems Manager at ECTEL. What exactly does this role entail? Take us through what your typical day looks like.
Okay, thanks, Coretta. Okay, I think that ICT plays an integral role in the operations of ECTEL. We are small in number, but we always have a lot going on at any one time. So it is through the use of technology that we can work more efficiently and more effectively than we would otherwise. So my role at ECTEL as the Information Systems Manager spans a myriad of responsibilities, from planning and executing hardware and software upgrades, to ensuring that the Directorate's IT and information assets are secure from threats, to providing technical and project management support, to training staff in the use of applications, to assisting with evaluation and procurement of ICT-related resources, to forecasting and, essentially planning the IT needs of the Directorate. My day typically begins with a written plan to get through a number of activities during the day. But midway, when I glance at the plan, I realize, oh boy, I'm not following it. And that is because one more component of my job is to respond to the requests for technical assistance that I get from colleagues internally, as well as from the NTRCs. So when a call comes, I spend a bit of time assisting to resolve issues to allow my colleagues to continue with their work so that I can then resume my activities on the plan for the day. So I would say that my job also requires that I employ prioritizing and time management skills.
Okay, yes, and you didn't mention quite a bit of other things that you do, Janelle, but yes, that sounds correct. Why did you choose to pursue a career in information and communication technologies, Janelle?
Honestly, I admire people who straight from the womb, they know the path that they want to pursue. I wasn't so fortunate. So after A-level, I taught at primary school in St. Lucia for 1 year. And then I started a degree in management of business at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. So after my first year, I was awarded a scholarship from a regional institution to pursue a degree in mathematics. So I transferred to the Faculty of Natural Sciences. I liked statistics primarily, but I didn't want to study math alone. So at that time, I had 2 choices. It was either math and economics or math and computer science. Now, I had hardly any prior experience or prior exposure to IT and computers, but I thought that that choice would make me more marketable when I entered the world of work. So after university, I taught math, POB, and IT for a few years, and then I started working in the private sector. And it was then that I remember thinking, ooh, that's what they were teaching us at school. Because up to that point, IT or even MIS, Management Information Systems, had been mainly theoretical to me. So it was this foray into the application of ICT to manage the operations, to drive the business forward that actually interested me.
Okay. All right. So what are some of the issues girls, especially from the Caribbean, face in terms of access to ICT tools?
I think one of the main issues is really the lack of access to the internet at home for many kids and for young people. Some data from UNICEF from a couple of years ago, so I think it was 2020, shows that only 33% of children and young adults have, or young people have internet access at home. And even with that figure, there was a significant gap in coverage between the high income and the low income countries. So ranging from 87% to as low as 6%. Now, a lack of internet access really means a lack of access to the wealth of information available online, because long are the days when our knowledge came from a set of encyclopedias that we had at home, or we would go to the library to access. So in current day, without internet access, kids really have very few resources to learn from. Now, while I don't have statistics specifically related to our region, we saw this issue of lack of access at home surface and make digital learning online or online schooling a significant challenge during the pandemic. Because of the numbers of kids who didn't have internet access at home and access to devices, we saw everyone, the governments, private sector entities, charitable entities, even schools themselves around the region, they undertook initiatives to provide the children and youth with devices and internet access in order to learn. So it really would be interesting now to see what the studies show in terms of coverage within the region. But with respect to the challenges, I think they are faced by both boys and girls. But I think it's a little harder for girls as they face some additional barriers generally to education and the social and cultural barriers that favor boys for the STEM subjects and careers.
Okay. Thanks, Janelle. No, when you were speaking about the pandemic, it reminded me that the NTRCs through the Universal Service Fund also provided the MiFi devices as well in some of our member states. So that would have helped students, to deal with some of these issues of access to ICT tools. Thanks, Janelle. The ITU recently surveyed more than 100 girls worldwide, and fewer than 1 in 10 felt fully equipped to stay safe online as they face online aggression, threats, and discrimination. Janelle, please share a few tips that parents, especially of girls, can take to ensure their daughters are safe online.
Okay, thank you for that, Carita. Now, I'll say again, kids and young people have a distinct advantage over the rest of us with technology. They were born with it. They were born into it. So, and they've been using it even before, well, for those who have access, they were using it even before they could walk or talk. And I actually remember a pediatrician telling me some years ago that when kids, girls and boys, came in for their 3-year or 5-year-old health assessments, they typically lag when it comes to the traditional skill of gripping a pencil, yet these same kids know how to unlock devices, swipe to access apps, voice search to find what they need, tap to play and interact, and even bypass simple parental control measures placed on these devices. And that's really amazing. So acknowledging that kids, including our daughters, are quicker and think that they're smarter where ICT tools are concerned, we as parents must definitely stay involved in our children's digital world in order to keep them safe. From my experience, I do have one daughter. I would say the first thing is to ensure that you keep communication lines open with your kids. Talk to your child, and the most you can do is encourage your child to talk to you. And you also have to set guidelines for internet usage and safety. Teach your child how to spot red flags and to report to you if something is wrong. Honestly, I think we must share with them a lot of the same things that we are being taught as adults about internet safety, because many of them are very capable from early on to understand and to use the technology. And so I believe that they're capable enough to understand their safety needs and their responsibilities as well. So in terms of what we teach them, I think we have to teach them firstly about the threats. We know the typical ones: malware, viruses, hackers, and unfortunately, we've gone to the end of the spectrum where we talk about online sexual exploitation of children. So we must make our kids or teach them so that they are aware of these threats or these risks. We must also ensure that their devices are protected from anti-malware software and even updated privacy settings. Our kids have email accounts, whether they're school email accounts or even personal ones. And I think kids from probably, maybe not preschool, but at least kindergarten have email accounts. So we must teach them about phishing emails. We must teach them about spam, how to block, how to delete these unwanted emails and possibly dangerous emails. And we must also teach them, and if they're too young, we must do it for them or get somebody else who can assist us with doing so. We must teach them to create strong passwords for their various online accounts, because they have lots of these. Beyond the email, they have all the social media accounts. So we need to ensure that they can keep those accounts protected as well. We must also implore them to avoid sharing personal information, photos and videos in public forums and with people they do not know. I know many of us have situations, or we know persons whose photos have been shared online and not flattering photos. And this causes a lot of, I should say, mental stress. So it's very important that we teach kids what they should and should not share online. And we must also teach them about cyberbullying. It is commonplace. It's a term we've bandied about for some years now, but it's still very commonplace. And even in games, innocent games, for example, Roblox, that many of the young kids and the tweens play, there is scope. And I know of cases where cyberbullying attacks happen. So these are some of the things we should ensure that we teach our kids. Pretty much, again, I would reiterate, it's the same things we learn as adults to keep ourselves safe. The third very important point or tip, I should say, is to supervise your kids' internet usage. So there are apps or parental control apps that would allow you to prevent the download and installation of apps on the devices without your consent, or these apps will notify you when your child installs an app. So parental control apps can even tell you the amount of time your child spends on each app in a day. So, and you can also block the use or limit the amount of time spent using the app. So these are very important because, because of the pandemic, and as the kids get older, they tend to be on devices more and more, and you don't have as much time to supervise them. So the apps actually do the work for you and report to you what's going on.
You mind sharing the name of one of these apps, because I've never heard of it before?
Okay, well, I actually use Family Link because I have which is on my Android phone, and my daughter's linked to her Gmail account. So that's one, but I mean, if anybody's interested as well, I can always we can always provide a list of some other ones that can be used.
Most definitely. We could share it in the comments afterwards, Janelle.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. And you're going to say something else?
Yes, sorry. So, and parents, again, should at minimum be familiar with the apps used by their kids, ensuring that these apps are age appropriate. Because there are some common social media ones: Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and I'll even include Facebook, although a lot of the kids and young people don't use Facebook. But at the bare minimum, we should at least be familiar with the apps and the content that the kids are exposed to when using the apps. And lastly, in terms of the tips, we should be alert to changes in our kids. Changes when they use in their use of the electronic devices, in their behavior, any attempts to, for example, hide online activity, anything that can signal or that might signal that something is wrong that we might need to look into, because even though we encourage our kids to talk to us, they may not always do so. So we as parents should always be vigilant, especially of our young girls.
Those were some awesome tips, Janelle. I'm actually going to listen back because while my husband monitors my children's social media, to be very honest, I'm not familiar with half of these things. It just feels like extra work, but he does an awesome job monitoring. But for one, I don't know how to use Snapchat or any of these things. And based on what you're saying, it makes perfect sense that I at least have the basic understanding of what it entails, how it works, so I can, check on it myself. So thank you so much for sharing those useful tips. So I'm hoping that those watching will also find them useful. So in wrapping up, Janelle, what encouragement can you give to girls who might be interested in ICT but are hesitant to take the plunge in this male-dominated field?
Yes, it is still, I was surprised actually that it's still so much a male-dominated field. When I looked at the recent ITU data, I noticed that worldwide, only 30% of tech, science, and technology professionals are women. And further, there are only half the number of women studying STEM subjects in tertiary education or institutions as men. So I guess it's for these reasons we promote and celebrate initiatives such as this today. Really just to encourage girls, just as you said, to take the plunge into this rewarding field. And I would say that to encourage girls, I would say that the field is vast. The field of IT is vast, and opportunities are boundless. So whereas I came along a traditional path and did certifications after, right now with the advent of social media and apps and mobile devices, you have areas that have opened up, such as coding and app development, the engineering and project management, even video editing, photo editing, cryptocurrency, and NFTs, just to name a few. So the path is not it's not rigid. There's a lot of information available online, and there are a lot of opportunities as well for increasing your knowledge and studying ICT related subjects without going through a 3 to 4 year degree program. And there are also many examples of young girls and women from the Caribbean region making their mark in ICT related fields. And I think this generation of young girls, ladies, are very well placed to take advantage of the resources available to achieve their goals. And I would also encourage possibly finding a mentor in the field with whom you can communicate and seek advice from. This is extremely beneficial, or would be. So you have that one-on-one communication, or there are a number of young women in ICT who started mentorship programs for girls interested in careers in ICT as well. So I think Coretta may have some of the information on how to join or how to access those resources, and we can share as well after the session.
Thanks, Janelle. You mentioned that there is on Instagram, Women in the Caribbean, Janika John. She's from St. Vincent, if I'm not mistaken, but she lives in Europe. And I believe she's one of the co-founders of this group, that they really mentor young ladies in tech. There's also Caribbean Girls Hack, also on Instagram. And if you search for Cheyenne Polios, she's a St. Lucian living in the UK. She also can provide you with more information on this area. So indeed, we'll put this in the comments for you as well. So any final words, Janelle?
Okay, so to wrap up, I'll be very short. I'll just reiterate that having access to internet and other ICT tools is very important, because just as the pandemic has shown, there's almost no limit to what you can do online. However, the internet presents risks, so we all have a responsibility to adopt, I would say, a mindset of safety, and to teach our kids, especially our daughters, our young people, to adopt that mindset and to always practice safety. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Janelle, for spending this time with us for the 11th episode of ECTEL Bytes. And while our program focused on Girls in ICT Day, I'm sure, as Janelle said, we can use some of these same tips to keep our boys safe online as well, right, Janelle?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, awesome. So if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments section below, and we'll definitely reply to you as soon as possible. Apart from being on our Facebook page, the recording of ECTEL Bytes will also be on our YouTube channel, that's at ECTEL, and on Twitter at ECTEL Authority. So be sure to share with your contacts who are not on Facebook, because this is a very important topic that is geared towards keeping our children safe whilst they're online. But before we go, you're invited to ECTEL's inaugural anniversary lecture on Wednesday, May 4th, that's next week, from 5 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time. The theme is the Electronic Communications Bill, from liberalization to digital transformation. And the lecture will be delivered by Dr. James Fletcher, Managing Director of Solaricon and former Chairman of ECTEL's Council of Ministers. The current Chairman of ECTEL's Council of Ministers, Honorable Stevenson King, will also be on hand to deliver the opening remarks. So do join us. The lecture will be carried on Government Information Services, St. Lucia, that's the GIS, Facebook and YouTube pages. All you have to do is simply search for St. Lucia Government and you'll find them on Facebook or YouTube. It will also be on NTN, and the link will also be shared on our Facebook page, which is at ECTEL. The rebroadcast will be carried on UE television. We'll share the dates and time as soon as it's provided. So once again, thanks for joining us, and we will go back to our usual day for ECTEL Bytes, which is the fourth Wednesday of every month from 2 p.m. EST or St. Lucia time. So make sure you join us on Wednesday, May 25th. We only shifted the day to the 28th, which is Thursday, because of the observance of Girls in ICT Day. I'm your host, Coretta Cooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, do keep safe and take care.